Hi, this is Acharya S., aka DM Murdoch, and I'd like to introduce you to the Mythicist position. You may never have heard of Mythicism, but it dates back centuries. I want to bring Mythicism to your attention now because it is truly an idea whose time has come. When most people hear the word myth, they usually think of a fictitious story, person, or thing. But with regard to religious myths, like those I discuss throughout my work, there are other, more accurate definitions, such as a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people, or explaining some natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving supernatural beings or events. Ancient religious mythology, based in natural phenomena, can have profound meanings that are both fascinating and amazing. Our ancestors were understandably astonished by the natural world that surrounded them, and it is precisely this natural phenomenon I consider the best explanation for the origins of many important religious concepts. The further one regresses in time, the more obvious it becomes that the principal and singular religious worship found around the globe has revolved around nature. Indeed, when the origins and history of religious concepts are studied in depth, one finds an intriguing development that essentially resolves itself into depicting as divine and venerable the entire cosmos, the whole of creation, quote, representing the eternal cycles of life and death, unquote. In other words, myths about dying and resurrecting gods. This generalized school of thought represents nature worship, or nature theology. This nature worship has included reverence for not only the earth, its creatures, and their fecundity, but also the sky, because for many thousands of years mankind has looked up to the heavens and become awestruck by what he has observed. This awe has led to the reverence and worship of the day and night skies, called astrotheology. If ancient religions worldwide were basing their religious ideas around natural phenomena, then, obviously, there are going to exist parallels between these sacred concepts. These concepts have evolved over time with similarities and differences due to environment, culture, and era. Added to that fact are all of the competition and borrowing of ideas between these various cultures. Only recently has the science of archaeoastronomy become a legitimate discipline at universities. Now we need the same recognition for what is known as astrotheology, which frequently accompanies archaeoastronomy. Archaeoastronomy worldwide demonstrates that stone monuments built by the ancients often mark alignments of celestial events, such as the solstices, equinoxes, and much more, including lunar phases. These megalithic sites, such as Stonehenge and many others, often were considered sacred, best described as temples. The ancients performed many religious rituals celebrating astronomical events at these sites. For example, winter solstice and spring equinox celebrations were common, serving as the original Christmas and Easter. Among these many astronomically aligned sacred sites globally is the 8,500-year-old structure known as the Egyptian Stonehenge at Nabta Playa in Upper Egypt, and the 16,000-year-old Lascaux cave paintings showing the Pleiades and other celestial features. This ancient astrotheological religious ideation goes hand in hand with Mythicism and the Mythicist position. The case for the Mythicist position may be found in the Bible, pagan sources and artifacts, archaeology, archaeoastronomy, astronomy, astrotheology, mythology, and history across a variety of languages, as well as in nature itself, as I have demonstrated throughout my books. There exists a mountain of primary sources and new discoveries being made that confirms the case for mythicism. The discussion of religion today is sorely missing a clearly defined position that factors in religious mythology based on natural phenomena. We're all familiar with terms like theist, atheist, agnostic, etc. But I don't find any one of these labels alone satisfying. Even the evamerist position, the idea that mythical figures were at least partially based upon real people, has been around since the 3rd century BCE. Yet, you'll find no mention of a clearly defined mythicist position in any encyclopedia, dictionary, book, or university. Oddly enough, the most reasonable explanation for supernatural figures in antiquity is completely missing in action. To quote from my book Christ in Egypt, The Horus-Jesus Connection, Mythicism represents the perspective that many gods, goddesses, and other heroes and legendary figures said to possess extraordinary and/or supernatural attributes are not real people, but are in fact mythological characters. Along with this view comes the recognition that many of these figures personify or symbolize natural phenomena, such as the sun, moon, stars, planets, constellations, etc., constituting what is called astrotheology. As a major example of the mythicist position, various biblical characters such as Adam and Eve, Satan, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Joshua, King David, Solomon, and Jesus Christ, among other figures, in reality may represent mythological characters along the same lines as the Egyptian, Sumerian, Phoenician, Indian, Greek, Roman, and other godmen, who are all presently accepted as myths rather than historical figures. I hear claims such as few scholars question Jesus' existence. But how can scholars be considered credible if they fail to ask the most basic questions about the evidence for the reality and historicity of supernatural figures? Theologians often insist that Egyptian, Sumerian, Greek, Roman, and many other gods be viewed as myths rather than historical figures. Therefore, when it comes to all other religions, Christian scholars themselves are mythicists. But when it comes to the Abrahamic religions, we hear all sorts of special pleading, claiming historicity for supernatural characters equally as implausible as these gods of other cultures. For example, New Testament scholars assume a priori that Jesus must have existed and work from there, without substantiating the initial claim first. When it comes to mythicism, there's a huge oversight by academia that ignores the elephant in the room. Learning about mythology and the mythicist position is not a requirement for theologians or New Testament scholars in order to get a PhD. Academia has failed to give mythicism and astrotheology the attention they deserve. Contrary to popular perception, faith and euphoria do not trump hard, credible scientific evidence that actually exists. Fear tactics are perhaps behind the academic blackout when it comes to mythicism, such as accusing people of being in league with the devil if they don't blindly believe extraordinary claims. But we mythicists know that Satan and Lucifer are myths as well. Don't take our word for it, or rely on academia. Study the case for mythicism yourself. The mythicist position serves as a bridge between theism and atheism, while also taking us beyond the eternal theist versus atheist debate. Mythicists seek to understand the meaning and substance behind the mythology, based on sound evidence and scientific endeavors. Therefore, those who study mythicism may be viewed as scientific-minded, and do not deserve to be derogated or discriminated against by theists, atheists, or any other camp. The time has come to raise the level of awareness and discourse, and it's time to acknowledge the mythicist position as a viable option that fills many gaps in our current understanding of numerous religious ideas in a number of sacred texts. In the end, mankind's most cherished and fervently held religious beliefs are rooted firmly in human creation based on natural phenomena, without the need for supernatural genesis, but nonetheless extraordinarily marvelous and meaningful. Cheers, and enjoy.